Ava Simmons pulled into the parking lot just after 10 a.m. The sky above was clear, and the pavement was warming beneath her sneakers. No tinted SUV, no chauffeur, just her reliable Honda Accord and a quiet determination that had taken years to earn. Ava paused before stepping out of the car, her eyes glancing at the glass doors in front of her. Simmons Auto House, a luxury dealership known for its high-end imports like Audi, BMW, and Jaguar, was her creation, a dream she'd built from the ground up. The showroom's clean lines, polished interiors, and hand-picked team of salespeople had been meticulously designed to cater to those with money and taste. She had spent a fortune on making it perfect. The sleek, minimalist lobby was everything she had envisioned. White marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and an espresso bar on the right side added a touch of sophistication. A whole wall of curved LED screens displayed slow-motion shots of cars gliding through winding mountain roads, a visual tribute to the dream cars she sold. Ava had spent years and countless resources cultivating the aesthetics of this space, and now it represented everything she had worked for. But as she stepped through the doors, a sinking feeling hit her. The receptionist, a young man in his 20s, barely glanced up from his screen before muttering, "Good morning," without so much as a smile. He looked her up and down for a split second, then looked away, clearly already mentally dismissing her. Ava felt the subtle judgment. No designer handbag, no perfectly manicured nails, no jewelry. She wasn't who he was trained to impress. "Can I help you?" he asked, already turning back to his computer. "No, just looking," Ava replied, doing her best to suppress a sigh. The receptionist barely acknowledged her response, nodding as he mumbled, "Someone will be with you soon." Ava stood still for a moment, taking in the space. She had handpicked every detail of this showroom, the scent of leather, the carefully chosen playlist, and even the air diffusers. She knew every inch of this place, and yet right now she felt like a ghost. Minutes passed before a salesman in a checkered blue shirt sauntered over. He was in his late 30s, oozing confidence and the kind of attitude that made it clear he closed deals quickly and sized people up even faster. "Hey there, I'm Jackson," he said, not offering a handshake. "Looking for something affordable today?" Ava raised an eyebrow. "I haven't said what I'm looking for yet." Jackson chuckled lightly, the kind of laugh that was meant to be charming, but instead felt patronizing. Sure, but I can always tell. You probably want something reliable? Maybe pre-owned? We've got a few good deals out back." Ava stayed silent, following him as he led her toward the back lot. They passed two shiny, untouched Jaguars. His eyes didn't even flicker toward them as he kept walking, as if they were beyond her reach. Instead, he stopped at a used Lexus parked near the side. "This one's a beauty," Jackson said with a confident grin. "Solid mileage, not too flashy." Ava crossed her arms, staring at the car. "What makes you think I don't want flashy?" He shrugged, unfazed. "I've been doing this for years. I can read people. You're more the practical type. No harm in that." For the first time, Ava locked eyes with him. "You think I can't afford the flashy stuff?" Jackson faltered slightly, his smile thinning. "Hey, no offense. I'm just trying to save you time here," he said, checking his watch as though she wasn't worth the full pitch. Ava took a deep breath, then asked, "How do you decide which customers get shown the premium models?" Jackson gave a little laugh. "Well, we treat everyone the same, of course. It's all about the vibe, you know?" She nodded slowly, letting the silence hang between them. "Vibe," she repeated, "like there's no point in dragging someone through the VIP section if they're just browsing?" He nodded, seemingly oblivious to the shift in her tone. Ava smiled slightly. "Do you know who I am?" Jackson blinked, caught off guard. No?" Ava didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled out her ID badge from her bag, holding it up so he could see the logo that matched the one on the wall. Jackson's face drained of color. She didn't say another word, merely turned around and walked past him, her calm composure in stark contrast to the panic that was slowly creeping over his face. Ava continued through the showroom, her steps deliberate and measured. She passed rows of luxury cars, each one carefully displayed under soft lights, as if they were museum pieces. But as she walked, her mind wasn't on the cars. She was still processing the interaction with Jackson, the salesman. He'd sized her up, assumed she was just another person who didn't belong in the world of high-end cars. But she wasn't angry. No. Ava had learned long ago that anger was a useless emotion. What mattered now was showing everyone here exactly who she was. A few minutes later, she stood in front of a Porsche section, a more exclusive part of the showroom. This area was reserved for high-profile clients, those who could truly appreciate the luxury of the cars within. The lounge in the corner had a private, almost intimidating vibe. The walls were dark, the lighting dimmed to give a sense of exclusivity. Ava had personally designed this space to feel elite and welcoming, yet intimidating to anyone who didn't belong. A woman in her mid-50s, impeccably dressed in cream slacks and a silk blouse, stood there, flipping through a brochure of Porsche models. She looked serene, unfazed by the intimidating ambiance. Yet Ava could see the subtle signs of discomfort. The woman had no intention of being treated like an outsider. Ava watched as a salesman, tall and thin, with a slick-back hairstyle, approached her. His smile was polished, practiced. "Looking for something specific today?" he asked, as if he had already decided that this woman didn't belong in the exclusive section. "Yes," the woman responded with a polite but firm tone. "The Macan. I've done my research." The salesman's eyes sparkled. "Ah, of course, just so you know, we require proof of funds before any test drives in this section. It's not personal, just company policy." Ava's stomach turned. She had designed this showroom, hand-picking every detail. The idea of using a policy to undermine a client's dignity, especially before they'd even asked for a test drive, was deeply unsettling. Before the woman could respond, Ava stepped forward. "Is that how we speak to our clients now?" she asked, her voice direct and clear. The salesman turned to her, confusion crossing his face. "Sorry, do you need assistance?" "No," Ava replied, her tone firm. "I need to understand why you're quoting policy to a potential buyer who hasn't even asked to test drive the car." He hesitated, his confidence faltering. "Well, we've had issues before. I didn't mean anything by it." Ava glanced at the woman, who had taken a step back, clearly uncomfortable by the treatment. "I designed this section," Ava said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I'm very familiar with the policy. But what you're doing isn't quoting it. You're weaponizing it." The salesman's expression shifted instantly. "Wait, you're Ava Simmons?" Ava didn't respond to the shock on his face. Instead, she turned to the woman, offering a smile. "If you'd still like to see the Macan, I'd be happy to walk you through it myself." The woman blinked, first surprised, then relieved. "I'd like that, yes." The salesman stepped back, his shoulders stiff with embarrassment, as Ava led the woman deeper into the section. She explained the difference between the Macan S and the Macan GTS in the same natural, confident manner she had used when she first started in the business. No assumptions, no bias, just straightforward information. By the end of their conversation, the woman thanked her. "You should have seen the look on his face," she said with a grin. Ava smiled. "I did," she replied softly. "That's why I'm here." But as she made her way toward the office wing, Ava felt a nagging sense of unease. What she had witnessed here wasn't just about one salesman. It was something much bigger. Was this behavior a one-off, or was it woven into the very fabric of the dealership? She would find out soon enough. Ava's steps echoed through the showroom as she made her way toward the break room. The glass door marked "Authorized Personnel Only" was slightly ajar, and she paused for a moment. Inside, a few of her employees were sitting around a small table, half watching a sports segment on the mounted TV while picking at their lunches. They didn't notice her at first, and Ava took a moment to listen. "So what happened with that lady last week?" a man's voice asked, his mouth full of sandwich. A woman snickered, rolling her eyes. "Oh, she wanted the AMG coupe, had her nose in the air the whole time, acting like she was some kind of VIP. I told her there was a 6-month wait list, and guess what she asked? If we could make an exception." The man laughed. "Gotta love the ones who think they're special, asking for exceptions like they're on a reality show or something." Ava's stomach twisted, but she didn't move. She continued to listen, her heart sinking further. "Did you see the lady Jackson's working with right now?" the woman continued. "She had a designer bag and everything, but I could tell just by looking at her that she wasn't going to be able to afford anything here." The man snorted. "People like her, walk in with their flashy bags and fancy clothes, but they can't even get approved for a lease. It's hilarious. Ava's jaw tightened as she fought to keep her composure. She didn't need to look at them to know who they were talking about. It was her. She'd been the one dismissed, the one judged as not fitting the profile of the customer they were supposed to be serving. The woman took a sip of her drink and then leaned back, almost smug. You know how it goes. They want to test drive a Porsche, but they end up leaving with a pamphlet and we're better off for it. The man chuckled. Exactly. People like that never buy anyway. Ava stood still, letting the conversation wash over her. She knew the employees in this room. These were the people who set the tone for the dealership, who shaped the atmosphere for everyone who walked through the door. Their dismissive attitudes were not just a matter of a few bad apples. It was an ingrained part of the culture, and that was something Ava couldn't ignore. She stepped forward, the sound of her shoes against the polished floor causing the group to freeze. All three of them turned and looked at her, their faces suddenly pale. So, Ava said, her voice calm but steady, what does someone have to look like to be treated with respect around here? The woman fidgeted, her mouth opening and closing without finding the words. The man's face went red. Ava didn't wait for an answer. I've been in this business for years and I've worked hard to build this company from the ground up. I didn't do it to create an environment where customers are judged by their appearance, or their clothes, or their bank account balance. The silence in the room was palpable. The TV in the corner buzzed in the background, but Ava didn't look at it. She stared at them, her eyes narrowing slightly. I heard every word you said, she continued, and this kind of attitude is exactly what's wrong with this place. They all shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Ava's gaze lingered for a moment longer before she said, you all need to think long and hard about the kind of company you work for. You've been making assumptions, insulting customers, and thinking it was all just harmless banter. But it's not harmless. It's toxic. And it stops now. The woman started to speak, but Ava cut her off. Don't! I've heard enough! She turned and walked toward the door, her mind racing. As much as she wanted to address this issue head-on, she knew the real work lay in the next steps. Ava had created a company where customers were meant to feel valued, not judged. But that wasn't the reality, and it was time for that to change. Ava's steps were measured as she walked down the hallway to the conference room. Her heart was steady, her mind focused on the task at hand. She had made the decision to confront the entire staff. No more passive observation, no more letting the behavior slide. This was her company, and it was time to fix what was broken. The conference room filled quickly, employees trickling in, each one offering tight smiles, some nervously glancing around. As they took their seats, Ava stood at the front of the room. No podium, no PowerPoint, just her and the gravity of what she was about to say. She looked around, making eye contact with each person present. I'll keep this short, she began, her voice calm but firm. Some of you may not know who I am. That ends today. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, exchanging confused glances. Ava's eyes narrowed slightly as she took a breath. I'm Ava Simmons, founder and CEO of Simmons Auto House. The room went still. A few people's jaws dropped, their confusion quickly replaced with shock. They hadn't recognized her earlier, but now they understood the gravity of the situation. Ava continued, her tone unwavering. I came in today without an appointment, no heels, no badge, and no last name. I did that because I wanted to see how this place operates when no one thinks I'm watching. And what I saw today, what I've seen for a while now, has been eye-opening. She paused, letting her words settle in the room. I was ignored at reception, she said, her voice cutting through the silence. I was condescended to by a salesman who assumed I couldn't afford the cars in the showroom, and I was shown a used Lexus instead of a premium model. That's not just bad service. That's disrespect. And I heard private conversations too. Conversations where some of you mocked customers based on their appearance, their clothes, and their supposed financial status. Ava's eyes swept across the room. This isn't about one bad day. This is about a culture that's allowed to thrive in this company, and that stops today. The silence in the room was thick. People shifted in their seats, but no one spoke. Ava didn't need them to. She had made her point. "I've spent years building this company," she said, her voice quieter now, but no less powerful. "I opened Simmons Auto House because I wanted to create a place where people felt respected. No matter what they wore, no matter what they looked like, no matter what they could afford. And yet, here we are. People are being judged before they even speak. That's not who we are, and it's not who we're going to be." She locked eyes with Jackson, the salesman who had dismissed her earlier. His face had gone pale. "Jackson," Ava said, her tone steady, "you've been here for years. You're one of the people who's supposed to set the tone for this company. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for accountability." Jackson opened his mouth to speak, but Ava raised her hand, cutting him off. "We're going to rebuild, and it starts with you, Jackson. It starts with all of you." Ava set down a slim folder on the conference table. "I hired a consulting firm to run anonymous visits to our dealerships. Every single one, including this one. They've been gathering data, observing the way you treat people. And let me tell you, what they found confirms my fears. Some of you are excellent, you go above and beyond. But others, you make assumptions, you dismiss people, and you alienate them." She looked around the room, her eyes hardening. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Some of you won't be here next week. Others will be promoted. But every single one of you is going to be retrained. Not just on selling cars, but on how to treat people with respect." A murmur rippled through the room, but Ava wasn't done yet. "This isn't just about sales. It's about the culture we've built here. And if this conversation makes you uncomfortable, good, it should." Ava turned to one of the women in the back of the room, Tessa, who had been with the company for 3 years. "Tessa, you've been holding your tongue for too long. You've seen what's been happening here. And today I'm promoting you to customer experience lead. You've earned it." Tessa blinked in surprise, but she smiled gratefully. Ava turned back to the room, the message clear in her eyes. This is the first step in making this company what it was always meant to be. A place where people are treated with respect. And if you're not on board with that, if you can't see how important that is, this isn't the place for you. The room was quiet, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Ava knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be pushback. But she also knew that this was the right thing to do, and she was ready for the fight. The changes Ava set in motion were immediate. Within hours of the meeting, HR and senior management began implementing the restructuring. Some employees were dismissed quietly, given severance packages with no fanfare. Others were put into roles that better aligned with the company's new values. Roles that required not just skill, but an understanding of respect, dignity, and inclusivity. By the end of the week, Ava's message had begun to echo through every corner of Simmons Auto House. She'd pulled in a team of expert trainers who worked with the sales staff, guiding them through scenarios to confront unconscious bias, making them address every assumption they had ever made about their clients. It wasn't just theory, it was real, raw, uncomfortable work. But it was necessary. Ava had always known that the change had to be more than just superficial. It had to be deep, systemic. And she didn't stop with the sales team. The marketing department, the service staff, even the receptionists were all retrained. Everyone who interacted with a customer had to learn not only how to sell a car, but how to make someone feel seen, respected, and valued. Tessa, now promoted to customer experience lead, was flourishing in her new role. She was hands-on, sitting in on client interactions, ensuring that every detail of the customer experience was thoughtfully considered. She worked closely with the IT team to develop a new system that not only tracked sales, but also collected feedback and sentiment from clients in real time. It wasn't just about numbers anymore. It was about how clients felt, how they were treated. Ava read every report Tessa submitted, and she saw the change. The once tense, transactional atmosphere of Simmons Auto House was giving way to a more open, respectful environment. Customers who had been overlooked before were now walking through the doors and being greeted with genuine interest. Sales reps were more patient, asking real questions instead of making assumptions based on appearances. Meanwhile, word of the changes began to spread, not just through the company but across the industry. Other dealerships, seeing the shift, began to ask Ava how she had managed it. How did she turn the culture around so quickly? Ava didn't sugarcoat it. She told them the truth. It was about courage. It was about acknowledging the problems, facing them head on, and being willing to tear down the system that had enabled them. Ava received emails from people she didn't know, first-time buyers, single mothers, young professionals, all thanking her for standing up for them, for treating them with the respect they deserved. One email in particular stood out. It was from the woman in the Porsche section, the one Ava had helped with the Macan. "I walked into your showroom expecting to be tolerated," the email read. "I walked out feeling like I belonged. I don't know if you remember what I said, but I told my sister later that night. She didn't see me as a maybe. She saw me as enough. Thank you for that." Ava read those words 3 times. She kept the email in her folder as a reminder of why she did this. It wasn't about changing policies or making numbers look good on paper. It was about making sure people felt seen. It was about real human connection. By the time the following months had passed, the showroom felt different. Sales reps no longer sized up customers based on their shoes or their clothes. They listened. They engaged. They treated each person as an individual, not a stereotype. Ava stepped into the showroom one morning, watching a young couple speak with Malik, a soft-spoken former mechanic who had recently been promoted to sales. They were asking questions not just about the cars, but about long-term care and financing. Malik was taking his time, listening, and providing thoughtful answers. Ava smiled watching him. Things were shifting, slowly but surely. This wasn't about a quick fix. It was about long-term change. Ava knew that, even though it would take time for the ripples of transformation to reach every corner of the company, they were starting to make a difference. She stepped outside for a moment, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, and thought about the future. She had built Simmons Auto House with the dream of changing the industry, and now she was doing exactly that, not with press releases, but with real action. She had faced the problems within her own company, torn them down, and rebuilt from the ground up, and she was proud of what she had created. Ava turned back toward the showroom, walking with purpose. What she had started here was only the beginning.